And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another week, another season of World Team League WTL 2024 KungFu Cup round number 1. Oh my god, I'm of course your host Live VIP, and with me I'm joined by the amazing people in the chat and these incredible players as well. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another season of KFC. Next week, I promise, next week we'll order some KFC. We'll in commemoration of KungFu Cup, you have to have KFC, of course. As of course we say, with a new season of World Team League comes a new season of KungFu Cup. It is great to be here. Exclamation mark B in the chat if you guys want to have a look at the bracket yourselves. The bracket is massive. The bracket is stacked, as it always is. These weekly tournaments have a massive prize pool. They bring together the best of the best from Europe, from the Americas, from South Korea, all in this single elimination bracket. Here we go, and spawning in the top right hand corner of Alkyone, we have our South Korean Terran player, the Red Terran representing Team Vitality. It is Ryung. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the German Zerg player, the Blue Zerg representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Lambo. Here we go, and I'm ready. I am excited. Of course, we did cast a lot of Ryung last night. Was mentioning it in the chat earlier, but yesterday we were casting the GSL qualifiers, and Ryung did end up forcing the ace match out of both Dark and Sue as well. Went all the way to the ace match, but barely did not make it through round 1. We're going to be seeing more of Ryung in round number 2 in a couple of days. As a reminder, we're going to be casting the second half of the GSL qualifiers in the coming days as well. And yeah, I'm excited to see how Ryung does. I think what's important about his performance in the GSL qualifiers were that he was a very versatile player. He had a lot of different builds up his sleeve that he was able to dabble into, was able to mix in some mech, but not heavily rely on the mech, more importantly. So we'll see how Ryung does approach a player like Lambo. We shall see. If you remember as well, it did feel like Ryung's mech was very map specific and very map oriented. I believe he played mech on site Delta, both against Dark and Sue. Outside of that, did play Bio in every other map in every other game. So we'll see. But now it's going to be a Rax expand. We have seen quite a lot of Rax expand into a third CC, into a 3-Rax follow-up. We've seen that quite a bit out of Ryung, time and time again. It's how Ryung was able to take down Dark, if you recall, and take a map off of him, at least initially. Likewise, did do the same against Sue. We'll keep an eye on him, as this time, no, it is going to be a factory follow-up. Okay, something looking a lot more standard from the side of Ryung. Meanwhile, across the map, he does get across with the SV, does delay the third base. Ooh, Reaper gets there in time, and can we get the drone? We cannot. Just barely. Does morph into that gas geyser, but the third base is delayed. Again, this is a very characteristic of Ryung. He's very attentive when it comes to delaying the third base and causing havoc. That gas geyser is halfway done, and hopefully we're able to cancel. Hopefully we're able to keep that drone alive, as Ryung does go for his third CC. Third CC before starport. Gas geyser is going to be cancelled. Drone, tries to make its way towards the third base. Is denied once again. Force morph into that gas geyser, and Lambo will finally take control of this area with the help of the Queen. Is going to be able to expand, take his third base, but is quite heavily delayed. So there we go. Third is finally on the way. Ryung is forced out, and the game can settle from here. As a reminder, Ryung going for an economic build, going for a starport follow-up, so 3CC into a starport. No add-on yet, but we do have time to construct a tech lab to go for an add-on swap. If that's the case, we have seen, there's that tech lab by the way, we have seen a lot of Ryung going Viking first instead of going straight into Cloak Banshee, so I'm curious if that's going to be the case. One creep tumor goes down, but only one, as Ryung backs off. Keeps that Reaper alive. Behind this, Lambo's just droning. There's no hidden tech, there's no fast roach warren, no fast gases, no fast lair. Nothing out of the norm here from Lambo. Everything so far looking as it should from the side of the zone. Meanwhile, across the map, we spoke about the Banshee follow-up. There is no Viking, so it's just a straight up Banshee first. We do have, again, quite a bit to work with here, going 3CC into Banshee. Hellion's going to be applying some pressure. Banshee soon to be moving out as well to apply some pressure and get some economic damage as well. We are investing into Cloak. Cloak is on the way, and it looks like Lambo should confirm this. The Overlord Scout is going to be able to get eyes on the tech lab, and we do see the researching upgrade, researching tech, fully aware of what's going on, of what is coming our way. So this should give Lambo enough time to prepare back at home. Of course, we're amassing queens. We have a couple of lings as well outside of the natural to make sure we can catch any kind of dive. And we should soon be seeing some spores in time for the Banshee. So far we have a back and forth, and I want to give Ryung a bit of an edge here just because of the early harassment and the early aggression at the third base. But outside of that, we've had a pretty stable game here. Banshees are now moving out, but again, Lambo, he knows they're coming. He's getting ready for them. Spores are just now starting. We have a spore at the third, spore at the natural, spore in the main base as well. And it looks like the Spore Crawler should finish up just in time. The Banshee does delay the fourth. Get a kill on one drone. Likewise, Helly try to poke in towards the left, but Lambo's able to keep up. So Lambo doesn't really sustain too much damage. His fourth base is delayed, but not much more than that. Behind this, we're throwing down a Bailey Nest. It's going to be Ling Bane, at least initially here from Lambo. Lair is done. Bailey Nest a little bit delayed here, so it's not quite lined up with the Lair, but we should be rushing into Bailing speed. Followed by 1-1. So straight up Ling Bane here from Lambo. And Ryung behind this getting to bite. Yet thankfully no mech, not this time. Mentioned before that it did seem like mech was very map specific from Ryung. But for now it is going to be coming into bite. So far getting 4 drones, 5 drone kills. Oh, I spoke too soon. 4 drones so far. Good damage here from Ryung. And the Banshees are not really under threat. Getting another couple of drones in the main. 3 workers go down, all the gas mining workers, drones even, from Lambo. At the same time, Hellies they poke in, focusing on clearing up creep. Keeping Lambo pinned. You can see here Ryung just being very careful with his movement, does pull back once he runs out of cloak. 7 drones go down, and he does survive with everything. Very efficient trades. You can see here, Ryung not losing a single unit and taking down 8 drones and 1 overlord. Very nicely done for the time being. Really solid start here for Ryung. Not just that, but also delaying the third, delaying the fourth. Behind this, getting into his 8-rack setup. I believe 8 racks. We have 3 more on the way, and that is, 5 done, so 8 in total. We're not taking additional gases yet here at the third, just taking 1 for now. I don't see a follow-up factory, and this could be an 8 racks all in. This is also something that we saw against both Dark and Su during the GSL qualifiers. I spoke about how he had very specific builds. He had 3 builds that he did showcase. He did all 3 of them against both players. It was Mech on Site Delta. It was an 8 racks all-in as well. I believe that may have been on Alkiona or on Oceanborn. I remember those 2 maps being played. And he also had the 3cc 3 racks, which we have yet to see here in this series. Now he is pushing. Yeah, and we're gonna be committed. Very committed here with this build. Borderline 3 base all in here from Ryung. No transition yet. And he's gonna hit like a truck. Again, we're just gonna be rallying purely Marines and tanks behind this. There's no Marauders. There's no Ghosts. There's no follow-up tech. I'm trying to brute force our way through. Now behind this, Lambo has been able to drone up to 80. A solid drone counting from Lambo. He's on 4 bases, soon to be on 5. His production is solid, his economy is solid. But what about his army? His army is still lacking. We need a little bit more time to build up our Ling Bane, and because of the Hellions earlier, the creep here is almost non-existent. Ryung, he's gaining ground. At the same time, Lambo going for a massive counterattack. Now Ryung, he has left some units back at home. The Banshees do confirm. They spot the run by, they shut it down. Ryung can focus on his push. Bailey's rolling it. Ooh, don't quite connect. Another queen goes down. Oh! The Bailey's it will connect though. Handful of Marines do get picked up. Ryung getting another queen. Creep is slowly spreading. Hydras are amassing. It is going to be Ling Bane Hydra out of Lambo. At the same time, we try to catch reinforcements. Not quite able to. And here comes Ryung with the second wave. Wave of reinforcements have arrived. Now Lambo, he has been able to buy some time. His economy and his production has been left untouched for now. Hasn't really been threatened, but Ryung, he's playing slowly, methodically. Is he taking too long though? That's the question. Ryung is maxed. Lambo not too far behind. Bailey's rolling in. Don't quite commit. Delayed reaction out of Ryung, but he does react in time. Does manage to pull back more tanks, leapfrogging forward. Yeah, getting within range of the base. Yeah, we are getting there. Meanwhile, Lambo getting ready for a surround. It collapses in from behind. Lingbane rolling on in, and Ryung, does he have enough? The tanks are exposed. Yeah, the tanks, they get picked off one after the other. But we have a second line of tanks. And Ryung, he can keep on pushing, and now Lambo, he's in a lot of trouble. That flank was not good enough. Tanks are pushing forward. Where's the Lingbane? The Baneling, there's 0 Banelings left. 0 Banelings remaining, and that's going to be the end here, as, I mean, Banelings are going to be finishing up, but GG gets called. There's no holding this push, and Ryung will take game number 1. Whew. GG. Happy. GG, well played. Again, a very slow, methodical execution of that push by Ryung. Oh, I should also fix up. There we go. Fix this up. Ryung, of course, for those that were curious, we were mentioning it at the time, that wasn't 8 racks all-in. That was basically a 3-base all-in out of Ryung. It's where you build up to 8 racks, you don't tech up into Marauders or Ghosts or into into a 4th base or into a 2nd factory. You just hammer down that Marine button, make mass Marine, and of course tanks to support, and slowly overwhelm your opponent. And because of the solid early game, Ryung, he was very nicely set up in the mid game to actually snowball out of control the way that he did. Lambo was trying to go for some run bys, but the positioning of Ryung, and that's what's always been amazing about Ryung. That's why Ryung's best matchup is TVT. That's why Ryung has arguably the best TVT in the world, and why he was like the answer to Clem back in WTL last season, is that Ryung has always been so slow and methodical and been able to kind of read the map so well, and he was able to keep up with all the Lingbane run bys, shut them down, and snowballed out of control. And with that, we're now getting into our next game, and spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Site Delta, we have our South Korean Terran player, the Red Terran, representing Team Vitality, leading the series 1-0. It is Ryung. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the German Zerg player, the Blue Zerg, representing Shopify Rebellion. Down in this series, looking to bounce back. Ooh, on Site Delta, it is Lambo. Now, there's a lot to get into here. First, of course, is I'm also curious if Lambo was maybe a little bit too greedy last game. I didn't think so at the time. I thought he was able to drone up to 80 quite nicely, but you know, again, that did mean that his overall ground army was a little bit weaker, and he had less of a map presence as a result. Could not really slow Ryung down as he wedged his way into that 3rd base. But enough about game 1, because here in game 2, I mentioned before at the start of the series how we casted Ryung during the GSL qualifiers, and he had a very distinct amount of builds that he showcased over and over again against both Dark and Su, and one of those builds was on Site Delta. It was mech, a very specific kind of mech, but he did play mech against both Su and Dark on this map on Site Delta. I'm curious if, again, it is very map dependent. I'm curious if he's willing to do that here against Lambo. We'll see. It's definitely going to be in the back of my mind, the potential for mech here from Ryung. Likewise, I'm curious if Lambo is aware. For now, it's going to be a Rax Expand, standard opener out of Ryung, not going for a CC first, not taking any big risk early on. Likewise, Lambo going Hatch Gas Pool, going for a standard opener himself. Okay, so everything looking normal for now. Ryung going to be going for his initial Reaper, sending it across the map. This time, Ryung does not send an SCV, so he won't be delaying the 3rd base the way that he did in game number 1. Only moving out with the Reaper. Going to be applying some pressure, harassing. Nothing too major behind this, following it up with the factory. Everything's still looking normal for now. Mech is still in the back of my mind, but I'm trying to keep it back there. As Reaper dips in, dancing with the Lynx. And not really achieving too much here. Lambo is able to take his 3rd base without too much issue. A much more comfortable start this time from Lambo. Much more comfortable. As Ryung is going for his 3rd CC before Starport. Economic opener once again out of Ryung, just like we saw in the previous game. Everything's still looking by the book from our Terran player. And as we mentioned, like, this is just a much cleaner, much more comfortable start from Lambo. Able to expand when he wants to, like situating and settling into his natural base, soon to be his 3rd, droning up. Things are looking a little bit brighter for Lambo. Behind this, we're getting into our add-on. So, ooh, floating our racks quite far back, actually. Okay. So this looks like another Banshee opener. I say Banshee, there's a possibility for a BC-based opener as well. But no, we're going for the add-on swap here. It is going to be further back. It is going to be hidden and harder to detect. So we'll see if Lambo can prepare in time. As Tech Lab is finishing, and we should be going for that add-on swap. Banshees once again. We actually could go for a Viking first. Okay, Banshee. Okay, we're good. Not going for the Vikings, going for the Banshee opener instead. Without the Viking, it's going to be harder to hide something like mech, so it feels like we could just be getting into bio again. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic here. As Hellions are poking and prodding in between the bases. So far, good positioning with the Queens. Lambo's holding. Link Scout is coming in towards that natural, and Ryung does react in time. He does! Does lift up, and there's the Armory! Let's go. Armory has been thrown down. Okay, so with this Armory, we gain access to a Hellbat push. Interesting. Hellions are amassing. Do have our Banshees on the way. Now, Lambo, he has thrown down a Roach Warren. Very fast Roach Warren here. It was, I say fast Roach Warren, around 4-minute 30 Roach Warren timing. Is going to be in time here to defend. Hasn't really seen too much. Not even the Hellion count was too suspect here from the side of Ryung. But Lambo opting to play Roach is going to be very safe, and he's going to be very secure against the Hellbat push from Ryung. So good start. Good start here from Lambo. Overlord's going to be forced back. We're investing into +1 vehicle weapons. You know what that means? That means it is mech. That means it is map dependent. There's a reason why mech was in the back of our minds, because Ryung has played nothing but mech on this map, at least for the past couple of times that we've casted him, and it's happening again. Oh boy. So we have caught onto a trend here from Ryung. Hellion's going to be moving out. Still being active, getting ready for a Hellbat push, but remember, we're not committing to this. We're still taking a third base, and we're transitioning into that next step back at home, going into Speed Banshees. Let's go! Hyperfly Rotors on the way. Hellbats, they do dive on top of the Queens. Banshees have right, but we have detection. Lings, they collapse. They do get cleaned up, but we are able to hold on. The Queens, they stand strong here against the Hellbats. And Lambo does defend. Bearing in mind, though, that Ryung didn't have to break through, that Ryung is getting into his third and is macroing out of this. Likewise, Ryung also saves most of his Hellions. Looking at the trade, it was 4 dead Hellbats, able to preserve the rest, pull back, able to repair. And behind this, we're going for a much more active battle mech style. Investing here into Hyperfly Rotors tells us that we're going to keep making Banshees. We're going to just continue Banshee production. We're not going mass Banshee with like a second starport, but continuing it nonetheless for map control. Hellions rotate around, they get eyes on the would-be 5th. But too little too late, and Lambo, he's there to defend. Does protect that 5th. Likewise, Ryung moving out towards the south, rotating around towards that 4th base. No saturation yet, but there is no spore. Without a spore, these drones are a little bit exposed. Queens are rotating over. Where is the detection? It's lagging behind a little bit. Overlord speed just started, but we're able to hold on. Ryung doesn't commit. He pulls back. Does pull back in the end. Meanwhile, Lambo is committing to +1 range. He already has the Infestation Bit. With this, he can go into fast Infestors. And Infestors are just a great supportive unit here for Roach Ravager to lock down the army. Whether it's Hellion Cyclone, whether it's Banshee, can work wonders. As Ryung is just focusing on clearing up as much creep as he can, keeping Lambo pinned back. And Lambo, we're going to be committing here with some Dropper Lords. He's cutting workers at 70, by the way. Just under 4 base saturation. It looks like we're pushing. Yeah, the Overlords are here to lift up those Queens. Roaches are pushing forward as well. Now, as Lambo's getting ready for his push, we have some harass. We do hit the 4th. We're looking to hit the 5th. Helion's actually going for the 3rd base instead. Here come those Queens. And Ryung is not quite able to punish Lambo. We get 6, a couple more drone kills. Barely 8 drones in total, but I believe we have not seen the push. And Lambo is coming, and back at home, what do we have to defend? There we go, we have tanks setting up, turrets as well. Ryung, he does spot the army. He's in position. How many tanks? 5. 5 tanks in total here from Ryung. Queen's going to be dropping. Roach Ravager pushing in. This is a solid tank line, though. Oh my god. Massive tank shots going up. Yeah, Queens are getting sniped. But Lambo does have the supply lead. He might be able to just snowball through anyway. It might still be too much. We pile down one of those tanks. One tank goes down. The Hellions, we're running out of Hellions. We're running out of buffer. And we're getting on top of the tanks. We take down 2, soon to be 3. The detection did fall back a little bit here. And it looks like we do break the third base. Lambo is snowballing out of control, shuts down the third base, kills every single SCV, and we're reinforcing with Lings. Lambo, he may not break the natural, but he's broken the third, and that is good enough. Ooh, the Biles, they connect. They take down the Banshees. 29 SCVs go down. And Ryung, again, he barely could not hold on. He did kill all the Queens, and he killed most of the Roach Ravager. But Lambo, he has a solid economy behind this, solid enough. And now he has access to the 4th. He can keep pushing. Ryung trying to clean this up, trying to fight back, trying to save that 4th base. And this is saving grace. But even then, Ryung is down to 41 SCVs. They come in first round. They dive on the Cyclones. They dive on top of the tanks. Yeah, against Lings, Cyclone tank is not ideal. Lings are cleaned up, but still a nice trade for Lambo. Banshee will eventually clean up these Ravagers. And Ryung, he did save his orbital. That is true. He has mules, but even though mules are good, they're not that good. Lambo is still looking comfortable. He's droning up behind this. Now would be a very good opportunity to drone up to 80. Drone up to 80. We're getting into Hydro production. We have some anti-air. And what do we see? More drop alerts. We're going for a second wave. We're going for a second push. Now, the pressure is on Ryung, and I don't fault him for this. We're pushing. We're moving out. We have to. Ryung, he has to counterattack. He has to make use of his army in some way. Hoping that maybe Lambo was too greedy. But we have an army. And tanks are sieging up. Decent volleys, but the tanks are so exposed. Very little to support. And Lambo, he's cleaning this up. And we're looking to force the ace match. We're looking to bounce back. GG gets called, and we do tie things up 1-1. Lambo forces game number 3. GG. Let's go, papi. Let's go. Vámonos. GG, well played. Lambo, he does bounce back. Again, Ryung may be a little bit too aggressive early on, and unfortunately had a hard time getting a read on what was happening. Even though he had a solid line of tanks to defend against the push and committed aggression of Lambo, did not have enough to protect said tanks, did not have enough Sim City, needed more of a buffer there, and he was overwhelmed. With that, we find ourselves in the ace match. Now, as we get ready for Oceanborn, I don't expect to see mech again. I know that we've seen a lot of different variations of mech from Ryung, but now that we're loading into Oceanborn, we have seen more bioplay from him on this map, and I imagine that's what we're going to be falling back on. We'll see. We'll see how this works out. Catching up the chat. Sponsored KFC stream next week. Oh, the dream, papi, the dream. It won't be sponsored. It should be. Should be. KFC should sponsor KFC. That would just make sense. Is there KFC in China? There is. There we go. Just double checking. It would be fitting. Just saying. Just saying. SC Boy, make it happen. As spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Oceanborn, we have our South Korean Terran player, the Red Terran, representing Team Vitality, being forced into the ace match. Can he bounce back? It is Ryung. And spawning in the top left hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the Blue Zerg player representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Lambo. Go. Is that the counter to heavy Banshee? That's, oh, as we're going pool first. Let's go. Pool first opener here out of Lambo. But yeah, we have seen Raynor do it as well. I mean, I would not be surprised if, you know, it is a response that has permeated through a lot of the European players out there. But to try to punish the Terran player because they're investing into, because Ryung, I should say, invested into a Hellbat Banshee push that did delay tank production quite a bit, and he did throw away a lot of Hellions as well. He was vulnerable. To go for a timing like that from Lambo did make a lot of sense. I feel like usually we see like 3 base all-ins from there, like I'm talking 66 drones. Lambo did drone up a lot more than that, which is why I assumed, and I think Ryung assumed, that Lambo was going for a later game, but he wasn't. Committed nonetheless. It was an interesting choice there, and again, it worked wonders from Lambo. Cutting workers at 70 when he did, and moving out with those 8 queens. But now we're going to be settling in, and because of the pool first, we do have a wave of lings on the way. Interesting, we have not gone for 6 lings, we've gone for 4 instead. So we're pushing out with 4 lings, going to be harassing across the map. Ideally, we want to avoid, never mind. I was going to say ideally, we want to avoid the initial scout, but it was an SCV scout here from Ryung. Does confirm the pool first, and Ryung, he's getting ready back at home. As a reminder, Ryung did not SCV scout on site Delta, so I do think that Lambo gambled a little bit here. I'm sure that Lambo was hoping that once again, Ryung would avoid the SCV scouts, but fortunately for Ryung, did go for it, and he was able to respond as well. So Ryung is going to be able to hold on here back at home quite nicely. Getting into his factory follow-up. And Lambo back at home, happily droning, taking his third. Calming things down. Again, not the most efficient or the most economic start from Lambo, but at least he only made 4 links instead of 6. Wasn't a big investment. And Ryung is going for that 3rd CC. 3rd CC before Starport. Once again, it's been the same opener by Ryung every game so far, but the follow-up has been different. You know, we've seen Mech, we've seen an 8-Rax 3-base all-in. Oceanborn wouldn't be a bad map for an 8-Rax, not gonna lie, but I'm not so sure if it's wise for Ryung to fall back on that same build again in this series. Do you want to be mixing it up? Reaper does confirm the 3rd base. I believe did not make it into the main. Didn't make it into the main base. Ooh, did towards the natural a little bit too much there. Takes some extra hits. Behind this is a Starport follow-up. No Tech Lab. Okay, for the first time, it is 3 CC into a Starport, but no Tech Lab, no add-on swap, no Banshees this time. Interesting. We're going for a Liberator opener instead. Okay. It's going to be Liberator Hellion out of Ryung. Now, you're a little bit more vulnerable against Roach aggression with this kind of opener, but Lambo has not thrown down the Roach Warren. Ryung is going to be able to get away with that. His goal here is to harass, to distract one army, get in with the other. Ideally, keep the Queens busy with the Hellions, and then the Liberator can go into the main, or vice versa. See Lambo splitting up his queens, getting ready here at the 3rd and at the natural. He's ready for any kind of Hellion aggression for now, which is the hope for Ryung, the idea. That it keeps the queens busy, slips in with that Liberator. Behind this, we're following it up with Bio, once again. It's going to be Bio from Ryung. 3rd base soon to be taken, Liberator making its way towards that main. Behind this is going to be a lair first out of Lambo. Interesting. So we're not, once again, we're not going for like any kind of fast Evo chambers or a safety Bailey Nest first either. Just going for our lair, followed by the Bailey Nest, followed by Bailey Speed. And into Ling Bane. Into 1-1. I guess what I'm trying to emphasize is that Lambo, he's not cutting any corners. Not cutting any corners, not being overly safe. Liberator does manage to get into the natural, gets 3 drone kills. Not bad. Oh, Lambo, a bit of a misclick there, but he should be able to recognize that soon enough. Yep, does pull away from the gas geyser. And at least Lambo minimizes more losses. But that was pretty good by Ryung. Ryung, he hasn't lost anything. Got 3 drones, got away, kept everything alive. Now Ryung is going to poke in once again. Clearing up some creep. Rotating towards the right. Liberator pulls back. Ryung is now establishing his 3rd base, and behind this we're getting into our bio setup. Stim, soon to be combat shields. 3 more Raxes on the way. We're 8-Raxing again. I mentioned before that I would not be opposed to an 8-Rax on Oceanborn, but I am opposed to doing it 2 games in 1 series. I'm feeling a little bit uneasy about that. No, fool me once, shame on you sort of thing. Where Lambo, he's already had to deal with an 8-Rax already in this series. I'm sure going to be that much more attentive to it in Game 3. So yeah, the Raxes have been set up. We'll keep an eye on the gas count here at the 3rd. That's really what I'm looking at. The gas count, the 2nd factory, a 4cc, any kind of sign of a transition from Ryung. Otherwise, he's going to be committed. So Ryung is amassing his army, working on his first wave of tanks. Liberator setting up back at home. We are pushing. Now, the scary thing about Oceanborn is the rush distance by ground is shorter. It is a little bit shorter compared to Alkione, for example. Likewise, your base setup here, your 3rd and 4th are a little bit more exposed. As Ryung is going to push up this ramp, and he's committed. He is going for a 3-base all-in. Again, no additional SCVs. We're cutting SCV production at 55. 55 workers, no gases, no 2nd factory. Just a straight-up all-in out of Ryung. Now, Lambo, he did drone up to 77. Oof. Drone up a little bit more, but getting ready for a surround. And does come in. It does catch a reinforcements. Big Bailey connections. We get a surround on the tank. And before Ryung can get this going, he is being cleaned up. Does have some nice control, though. Focuses down the Bailings. Ryung, he's pushing in. So that's that 1 tank behind him, pushing deep onto creep. Bailings are not ready yet, and Lambo, he's in trouble. Dives in with his Lings, but against Marines, they melt. And without Bailings, oh, it's looking tough, looking rough here, Bailings. They just barely roll in. Lambo holds. Just barely Lambo does hold on, but he traded so poorly there, lost so many Lings, and Ryung isn't done. Remember, he's all in. He's coming in with another wave, with another round of units. Lambo desperately trying to make some more Banelings. 6 more Banelings on the way. Ryung rotating around. Now his tank count was reset, which is huge. The tank count was reset, but now we have another tank. Liberator's now arriving as well. Banelings roll in. Oh, the splits! No! No splits at all. We take them to the face. Ryung distracted by the Ling. Run by at the worst moments. At just the worst moments. And with that Lambo, he shuts down the army. Shuts down the push. Ay, ay, ay. Ryung just not paying attention at the wrong moment. And with that Lambo, he has some breathing room. He has some room to breathe here. He's making more Banelings. His run back gets cleaned up. Ryung is still in, but again, he lost a big chunk of his Marines. And now his push is that much weaker. Another Ling run by. Ryung, is he ready back at home? We have only a handful of Marines. Does wall off. Ah, but that 3rd base so exposed. He's going to be running out of steam soon. The longer this goes on, the worse it is for Ryung. He has to end it here and now. We do see Lambo giving up in his 4th. 9 the 3rd CC. Ryung going to be able to deal with that. Lambo does overextend for a moment, but we have so much more Ling Bane ready for this. And again, only 1 tank. Hatchery's going to go down. We can afford to lose that. Lambo collapsing on the army. Once again from behind. Decent Baneling connections. Reinforcements has arrived. Ryung, can he keep pushing? He can. How many Banelings do we have? 1. 1 Baneling left. 7 more on the way. Ryung, he can still pull this off, but he just lost his tank. 0 tanks left. I spoke too soon. We ain't got 1 left. 1 more tank comes in. The freedom has arrived. We have the liberation zones. But you can see Lambo now just exceeding heavily here in the army supply. Again, Ryung bleeding out too much. Slipping up at the worst moment, and yeah, Lambo is getting ready for his 360 surround, even with drones. Why not, Papi? Why not? Ryung trying to force his way in. Again, like, Ryung needs the perfect engagement, but he's not going to get it. Not with this surround. That's a problem. Lambo, he can come in from 4 different angles. And he's going to. Yeah, the queens are coming forward as well. Lambo is just getting ready to pull the trigger. Catching more reinforcements, and there it is, the 360 surround. And Ryung, there's no way to kite, there's no way out of this. And he gets completely swallowed up. And with that, Lambo, he shuts down the all-in. GG gets called, and Lambo will take the series 2-1, advancing on into the next round. GG. GG, well played. Congratulations here to Lambo as he does take the series 2-1, taking down Ryung. But that was a close game. That was a very close ace match. Ryung was gaining ground. He was pushing through. But again, he was distracted just at the wrong moment. There was a Ling round by as the Ling Bane was collapsing on his army. And Ryung, he took some massive Banelings to the face. And with that, he lost a lot of momentum. Lost most of his momentum on the front lines. Lambo was able to hold on to survive to take the game. GG. GG, well played. With that, we're now getting into our next series. We're going to be following Lambo into the next round. And does he have an opponent ready and waiting? Soon he will. Oh. Soon he will. Let's head on over to the Asia server to try to find our next series. And if you're in the chat, !B. Let's have a look at the bracket. It's a pretty big bracket though. There's a lot to go over. Oh boy.